After 2 decades in front of the camera, you act like you're talking to an actual person instead of a camera lens. Was it awkward to do that when you started Mythbusters? Or did having someone standing there holding a camera help make it feel more natural? This is great. Fast forward to the pandemic when you're filming alone in your cave with no one to talk to. Was it easy transition from a cameraman to just a camera in the room? I'm not sure if it was an easy transition. It's not easy being on camera. And it's really true that the camera does love some people and it doesn't love some other people. This is totally true. But that's not to say that you can't learn how to be on camera, because you really can. Trying to figure out where to begin. On the ground floor, if you're at all interested or thinking about being on camera, and you have been stymied by the fact that watching yourself on camera is awful, know that this is a universal truth, that everyone who watches themselves on camera, it's awful for everyone. And it's not like that goes away. But for me, after a certain period of time, I became acquainted with the character that I was on Mythbusters, on the television show. And to say that is a little facetious because it's me, but for television, it's you plus a bit. That's the trick. That's the thing of dealing with the camera. It's you plus a bit. And that's just learned by like watching episodes one after the other while filming them and noticing what works and doesn't work. I was blessed in the early days. You asked actually a specific thing. Right, you asked if having someone there holding a camera made it feel more natural. Yeah, it really does. And some cameramen, they're just there to button on and button off. And that's fine. That's their prerogative to do the job how they see fit. But I was blessed in the early days with Paul Henry and Peter Coleman, my first two cameramen. Paul Henry was on for seasons 1 and 2 of Mythbusters. Peter Coleman came on in season 3 with Peter Heap. And then we had a long succession of wonderful cameramen. But my first two were really important because Paul Henry was very generous and very engaged with you when he was holding the camera. So like I'd be in your position, he'd be holding the camera, and I'd do a piece. And you have to learn all sorts of things that feel strange when you're first on camera. For instance, when the cameraman says, hold this up and talk about it, and you go, this is a blah, 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 blah. And he goes, no, I need you to hold it weirdly close to your face. And that's when you learn on camera that this doesn't look weird on camera, even though it feels weird in person. You learn all sorts of stuff like that. So then the next time you go to do a piece, I would go to do a piece, I'd be like, this is a blah, blah, blah. And Paul would be like, no, you got it so right. He was super enthusiastic. I felt like I was being trained like a dog. But that was lovely to finish a piece and have someone go, great, well done, awesome work. I've had a lot of cameramen who don't do that, and that's not required. But if you are new talent and if you are new talent, your relationship with the cameraman will make your work better. Actually, the show that just came out about Cindy Crawford, Linda Evangelista, all of the supermodels. Do you remember what this is called? This is a supermodel show. I think it's on Apple TV. And it interviews some of the most famous, beautiful women, Christy Turlington, from my youth, from the 80s. And these women are all crazy brilliant. They all have seen some shit. It's a fun doc. But the thing that I found most surprising about it is how for each of them, there was a photographer. And it was their relationship with a photographer that gelled their success and also helped them find, it seems, their creative muse. Because just as the model is clearly a muse for the cameraman is also a muse for the model. I hadn't realized that before, but when I gridded it on my own experience, the same is really true. Feeling like I have someone to talk to that's interested in what I'm saying matters. And Peter Coleman was the same. Tim Aylwood, who started out as a second camera and eventually became main camera for several years, was a natural maker. So as I would be working on stuff, his camera would actually be anticipating where I would go. And I could see that like Tim and I were doing this dance, and that was really cool. My final A cameraman on Mythbusters, Scott Sorensen, also a really natural builder, and also, Scott and I did a lot of that wonderful dance where I can see his camera anticipating what my hands are about to do. I had somebody come to me about hosting a new show, this is like 10 years ago, and they were like, do you have any advice? And I said, yeah, you know, you should ask to see your takes. And he said, you can do that? And I just thought, this guy spent a whole season filming a reality show in which nobody showed him one of his takes. If you're a producer on a show and you're not letting the talent see their takes, you're not doing your job. They need to see, and we as talent, we need to see our work, and we need to see what's landing and what's not landing. It's really, it's part of the due diligence of doing the job. So if you are new talent, I say, ask to see your take. And if you're not sure, ask to see it. And if something feels weird, go to your director and talk about it. It becomes this relationship between you and the character. So I said that television is me plus a bit. Television, I think, is me plus 10%. That's the number I've come up with over the years. And YouTube is me plus like 4%. It's less. It's less. I can tell you that like my closest friends find, yeah. Jerry Seinfeld has this funny bit where he's doing his stand-up comedy and he's saying, I can't talk like this. My wife can't stand the sound of my voice. And he's being facetious, but he's also telling the truth in that his comedy voice is not for home use. By the same token, my television or even YouTube presenting voice is not for dinner parties. It's a little much. And that's something that I had to kind of get used to and learn about. I hope that was useful. You do get used to the character that you are on a screen, and you do learn how to take advice even from yourself about what's working and not working. It just takes some time. And yeah, the relationship with the cameraman is really important. And then you asked specifically about the COVID transition. The last thing I'll say is, for me, feeling like I'm always talking to my partner. I'm always talking to my wife when I'm talking to the camera, because she's the person I talk to the most in the world, and we check in on everything. We talk about everything every day, right? Like that's what a partnership is. And I am not under the illusion that she wants to hear about every tiny detail about what happens on my workbench, but I do know that when something is particularly powerful to me, of course she does want to hear it. And that's one of those like conversational prioritizations that you make about talking honestly about something that really moved you. And that's the frame I take talking to this character that is this camera. And it is an amalgam now of my partner, but also all of the comments that I have read since the advent of COVID. And our tested comment section is a weirdly happy place. And I do feel like there's I can see some of you folks over the years that I've gotten to know in your workbenches from your questions that you've been asking. I've seen I surmise some of the progress you have made as makers from the changing questions you've had over the years. And that feels like a really grand conversation. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.